Yeah. Elite Builders. Wow, 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 wow. Dale. Dale, dale. Llegan los closes, traje Jordan. Si está en el lobby, cara de compra. Si tiro números, nadie se aguanta. Te cierro el deal antes que se enfríe la salsa. Tengo la llave, tú pon la prisa. La presentación parece revista. Firmas el papel, cambia tu vida. Sales del show sintiendo la brisa. Somos de Elite Builder, puro cierre. Si tocamos puertas, se te mueve el Friday. Sube la comisión, que retumba el cheque. Cuando el trato firma, todo el club se enciende. Ey. Somos de Elite Builder, cero miedo. Brindando por contratos en el juego. Desde el lobby hasta el ático en fuego. Cuando digo listo, todo el mundo me quedo. Tour por la city, luces y planos. Cliente dudando, se le van las manos. Quiero pensarlo, le explico despacio. Sale convencido, ya vio su palacio. Open house lleno, vibes en el aire. Yo dando cifras, tú quieres quedarte. Foto en la sala, vista en el frame. Cierras conmigo, upgrade en tu name. Somos del Elite Builder, puro cierre. Si tocamos puertas, se te mueve el Friday. Sube la comisión, que retumba el cheque. Cuando el trato firma, todo el club se enciende. Ey. Somos de Elite Builder, cero miedo. Brindando por contratos en el juego. Desde el lobby hasta el ático en fuego. Cuando digo listo, todo el mundo me quedo. No lo pienses, cambio de zip code, cambio de ambiente, brindo por el team, todos los presentes, más que vendedores, somos la gente, somos todo Elite Builder, puro cierre, si tocamos puertas, se te mueve el Friday, sube la comisión, que retumba el cheque, cuando el trato firma, todo el club se enciende, ey. Somos de Elite Builder, cero miedo, brindando por contratos en el juego, desde el lobby hasta el ático en fuego, cuando digo listo, todo el mundo me quedo. Yeah, yeah, Elite Builders. Wow, 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 wow. Dale, dale, dale. Llegan los closes, traje Jordan. Si está en el lobby, cara de compra. Si tiro números, nadie se aguanta. Te cierro el deal antes que se enfríe la salsa. Tengo la llave, tú pon la prisa. La presentación parece revista. Firmas el papel, cambia tu vida. Sales del show sintiendo la brisa. Somos de Elite Builder, puro cierre. Si tocamos puertas, se te mueve el Friday. Sube la comisión, que retumba el cheque. Cuando el trato firma, todo el club se enciende. Ey. Somos de Elite Builder, cero miedo. Brindando por contratos en el juego. Desde el lobby hasta el ático en fuego. Cuando digo listo, todo el mundo me quedo. Tour por la city, luces y planos. Cliente dudando, se le van las manos. Quiero pensarlo, le explico despacio. Sale convencido, ya vio su palacio. Open house lleno, vibes en el aire. Yo dando cifras, tú quieres quedarte. Foto en la sala, vista en el frame. Cierras conmigo, upgrade en tu name. Somos del Elite Builder, puro cierre. Si tocamos puertas, se te mueve el Friday. Sube la comisión, que retumba el cheque. Cuando el trato firma, todo el club se enciende. Ey. Somos de Elite Builder, cero miedo.
Yo, yo, yo. You hear me? Hello, hello.
Yo, what up? So you had to bless us with that slurpity slurp? Jeez, Louise, bro. How you doing?
You could hear that?
Yeah, I definitely could. Ew, bro. Come on, man. You're better than that.
What are we working on? All right. Good. So we're live.
We are live.
Irma, jungle.
Rock. So I think you mentioned like continuing to work on the listing presentation.
Yeah. So let's move on to the listing presentation, and let's move on to closing for the signature. And then obviously I need to think about it after that. So let's continue working on that.
Are you pulling something up so you can show us, or what are you doing?
Yeah, it's a screen. Let me know if you could see it.
Yeah, I just shared it.
Okay, cool.
Let me blow it up. Make it easier.
It's interesting because this is continuing to evolve. Where I think you see on the right-hand side, Nabello, how it says cash offer. When I started to present cash offers, and it was kind of like I'm transitioning it to a listing, I would go over the CMA first, and I would arrive at a value of the property first. And then I would be like, look, these are the 3 different options that you have, or these are the 2 different options. This is how the cash offer works versus this. What I started doing now with the cash offer is I just started going straight for the beginning. Hey, look, like when I know it's a listing, hey, look, this is how the cash offers work. And I start breaking down, like, let's just imagine that your home is worth $1 million. So it's interesting because this thing is continuing to evolve and change. So I'm excited to continue going down this, and then obviously incorporating the cash offers into this.
Into our scripts and dialogues and everything. And what I'm also aware of is it's like as it should be, because I know that, as I was refining and fine tuning the listing presentation, it's like a living, breathing thing where the structure and the backbone remains the same, but as marketplaces change, perhaps we augment something here, we get better at kind of framing the pricing portion. And sometimes that would frustrate individuals because they would be like, hey, that's a little bit different than what I heard you say on like a video a little bit ago. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's because it's evolving and changing. And that's what's happening here. And what you're doing is you're just giving people access to your mental map.
As we go along to.
Yeah, as it develops.
Yeah, and then the interesting thing too, because I was thinking about this too, because I've had to evolve and I've had to change so many different times as things in the marketplace started to evolve, So like one of the things, like I already had another agent. When I first started doing it, it was very impactful. And then I noticed that it wasn't as impactful. And I'm like, okay, like what's going on, And what was happening is that more agents in my market were using it because obviously I was teaching it to everybody, So then I had to evolve after that. And then I started like going over track records on calls, like showing people how to look up agents on Google on a call. And then I found out, I'm like, okay, that's really impactful for people to see that. And that gives me like instant credibility. So a lot of these things are going to continue to evolve. And they're going to continue to get better and better. And I think that's what makes a great agent or a great investor, somebody that's continually evolving and analyzing different things, learning from their presentations, and then making things better, basically. We updated our pre-listing package, bro. I hadn't done that in 6 years, Like it was, it's crazy.
And I'm curious, why did you have to upgrade your pre-list? What did you change? Look at you, bro. You're like Mr. Rogers drinking your coffee, bro. I love it.
I even have like a little bit of a mustache, bro.
Do you really? Bro, you're letting that mustache rip?
Like a little baby.
A little baby stash, bro? You're like Sebastian?
Black and white, bro. And I noticed maybe like 3 times in the last probably like 4 months where people like don't sign the contract on the spot, are leaning towards me and they're like, hey, look, like, do you have anything to leave behind? And everything's on the iPad basically. And they're like, well, look, I'll be very transparent with you. Like this person left this behind And as I was following up there, and it really like allowed us to basically recollect everything that we covered with them because they left something behind. So what I thought about, and not even necessarily for me, because it happened 4 times, but it was happening to the other agents. And I noticed too that in some cases earlier on in my career, whenever I would have a good conversation with like a probate or somebody like that, I would send them a copy of our pre-listing package. And then when it would come time to meet, I'd be like, hey, what's one of the reasons why you hired me? Like, well, look, to be honest, I've been using all of your vendors, and that was phenomenal. And nobody else had that. So your package was extremely helpful. So one is for the other agents on my team to be able to have something that they can send to before they go, or even after a good conversation with somebody. 2 was, it was black and white, bro. Like, we're not in a black and white era anymore, you know? I think I created that like in 2012 and probably kept it till like 2025. So it needed some update. And so we added like some pictures. We added some before and after pictures of staging. We added just a bunch of different things to make it a lot nicer.
Yeah.
To make it a lot nicer, to make it so that if we leave a presentation and they need something behind, it's basically there, and it's designed to help us convert better.
Solid, bro. And it's all, you're constantly monitoring kind of the landscape and monitoring presentations and saying like, hey, what do we need to do? What do we need to tweak? Even if it's such a small tweak, that'll help with conversion.
That will help conversion. And sometimes that, like, I remember this lady, it was like a family, and she was like this other agent left something behind. It was a $1.8 million listing. And just so you know, in that price point in our area, everybody has something printed, even though they're presenting on an iPad.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And then the other one was like, look, I'm a paper type of person. And I'm like, I don't have anything to get, you know, like basically it's, yeah. So I basically got it over to her the next day. And then within a week, they were like, yeah, we want to work with you, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's this awareness that I think you don't overly rely on materials to win the day because you're a rock star salesperson, but it's like skill based and marketing supported. So you know how like we say like prospecting based marketing supported from like a lead gen perspective?
Yeah.
Well, presenting is like skill based with material presented, like supported, where a lot of agents heavily and overly rely on the materials to try to win the day. And then, you know, somebody who's super skilled will come in and, you know, list the property.
100%. Where on the contrast, I noticed that other people that have something like that, they're relying specifically on the package to win them the presentation versus how you say things and how you present different things. It was so funny because on that one, I asked them, what are your thoughts on home staging? Because I knew I was competing. And they're like, the guy was like, oh, I think it'll help. And then the other sister was like, I don't think that'll help at all. And I was like, okay, like if I'm going to put myself in a competitive, if I'm going to win this, I have to make them want what I have to offer, because I know that the other agents likely aren't going to be offering that. And I had to basically sell her on why staging was going to help her sell faster and for more money.
Because you knew that that was a thing that you could provide that the other agent couldn't.
Well, I've been in that situation before where, and it's usually like a family dynamic, like an inheritance, where one of the decision makers is like, no, or one of the siblings that's influential, like, I don't think that's the case. But the reality is that they think it's going to cost them money, and they think that they could probably get a better percentage if they don't do that, basically. So what I learned, it was, and I think this is good because I learned how to align with them. So the way I handled it, and maybe a little bit of feedback would be good. I was like, look, like, I'm imagining that you're the type of person that could walk into an empty property and you can visualize exactly the way that you want to remodel it. And I'm imagining that you're also the type of person that when they walk into something, they prefer to see it vacant because they don't want their vision tainted by what somebody else is painting for them. I'm like, you strike me to be like what I call a visionary. And they're like, oh yeah, 100%. That's me 100%. And I'm like, I'm actually the same exact way. Like, I would rather walk into a property and not see it staged. I can walk into any property and basically see that what I want to do and how the property is going to look once it's fully rehabbed. Now, here's the biggest challenge that I had in real estate, Aaron. The biggest challenge that I had in real estate was that I imagined that everybody thought just like me. Meaning, I imagine that everybody wants to walk into an empty property, or everybody has that vision. And what I realized is that you and I were actually the outliers, and 95 to 90% of the people don't think like us. Meaning, people have problems visualizing. And if we can't paint a picture for them as to what the potential of the property is, they won't be able to see it. So even though you and I that may not be our preference, for 95 to 99% of the people, we have to paint that picture, which is why I strongly believe in staging. And then I'll transition into the staging pitch.
Basically. How did she receive that?
I think they receive it extremely well, because you're aligning with them. You're basically, in a polite way, letting them know that they're the anomaly, which is the reality. They really are, and then you're transitioning into like the staging pitch after that without making them wrong.
Yeah, without making them wrong, which is the critical point. Yeah, and I agree with you. So as I heard you kind of sharing that, my first thought was immediately you aligned with them.
Yeah.
The other thing that's an awareness too is when you're like, yeah, you strike me to be someone who, is like a visionary, in the sense that they can walk into an empty space and kind of see its potential and see what it has to offer. And in fact, having contents or furniture there is actually a little bit of a distraction. And when you said that, it's like, and she's like, yeah, it's 100%. That's me. It's like this. If you've ever seen the movie Avatar, which is like, I see you. It's like, oh, like Jose sees me, right?
Yeah.
Like he gets me, sort of thing, which is critical, particularly if you're going to challenge, which you did, politely challenge a belief.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly what's going on. Basically.
That's exactly what's going on there. And it's like, yeah, for that reason, and listen, I'm the same way. And for that reason, being that, 95, like, you're the anomaly, you're the exception to the rule. And people want to feel exceptional. And then it's like, yeah. And 95, professionally, my professional experience, 95 to 99% of the population actually doesn't operate that way. They need to see what's possible. And we've seen, in fact, that it equates to actually more money in people's pockets. Can I show you what I mean? And they're like, yeah. And then you show them, because I know you have part of that presentation, like before and after and this and
that. I do. And then in some cases, I'll give them an example too. I'll be like, look, and this is when I realized that my thought process was a little bit different than most people. I had a buyer that we were working with, and we walked into an empty property that was not staged, and it was in an inferior neighborhood, and it was inferior condition. Then we walk into a property in an inferior neighborhood, inferior condition, and it was staged. So sorry, we walked into a better property, better neighborhood, staged, and an inferior property, inferior condition, but it was staged. Or it's I think I'm mixing myself up. The better one is not staged, and the one that is inferior is staged. And what I realized is that as I was walking through, I asked the buyer which property they wanted to write an offer. And to my surprise, they decided to write an offer on the staged one. And I asked them, I said, look, this one is in a worse neighborhood, is inferior condition. Why? And she goes, it just felt better. And what I realized in that moment, I was
like in that moment, instantaneously, you were like, oh,
it just felt better. And that's one of the instances that I realized that it's not just what they see, it's also how they feel. So let me show you a couple of quick examples on why I believe staging will help you sell faster and for more money. And then I transition it to that, basically, into the actual staging pitch.
Mm-hmm. And you can tell that, you can share that example too, like that direct real
literally
world.
like the before and after example, be like, look, like this is what a property looked like before. And then I even have a way of selling against like the benefit because what's happening now is more people in our area are staging as well too. So in my pitch, I incorporate how our staging is different than other companies' staging, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So my pitch there is like, look, this property was listed with another agent. This agent actually offered complimentary staging as well too. Now, if you can see, there's only one couch, one mirror, and one centerpiece. Now, here's the challenge. When agents outsource the staging to a third-party company, it costs money. And because it costs money, most agents are going to try to save as much money as possible so that they can invest as little as possible. But this is what it results in. Less money means less furniture. And this is what it looked like. Now, this property was listed with another broker for 90 days. It didn't sell. This is what it looked like. And this is what it looked like with us. Now, the difference between us is that we actually own all of our own furniture. We own about $700,000 worth of furniture. We've been adding about $100,000 worth of furniture for the last 7 to 8 years. Now, let me ask you this. If you were looking online and you saw this picture that was with another agent and you saw this picture with us, which property would you be more attracted to and why?
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I love about that, Jose, is you're asking them, you're not telling them.
Yeah.
Because people will never argue with their own information, but they will argue with yours. So you're not going into this pitch like, look, like this is how we're able to get more, and like blah, blah, blah. You're like, hey, if you were to see these two properties, because I guess, would you agree that most people are going to look online before they come and physically take a look at the property? And like, well, yeah, definitely. Okay. And just like, pictures with the restaurant that you're going to go out to tomorrow, does that have an impact on whether or not you go to the restaurant or not? Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, homes are no different. So let's imagine for a moment that you were looking at these two properties. Which one of these two properties do you think you'd be more attracted to and why? And then just hush, breathe, and listen. And they'll sell you on the fact that this is really valuable. And then what you're doing simultaneously is like, the only way that they can get access to that is through you.
Yeah. And then I'll ask, and then they'll say like, well, we like yours better. And I'll be like, why? And they'll be like, we like it because of this. I'm like, you want to know the interesting part, Aaron? It's actually the same exact property. It's just being promoted differently. So when sellers come to me and they tell me, hey, look, regardless of who I list with, I'm going to get the same as result. This is what I have to say to that. Depending on which agent you choose, they're going to make an impact on how your property is promoted online and how it's promoted in person. Here's what I'm a specialist in. I'm a specialist in how to arrange the furniture the right way. I'm a specialist in how to have the right lighting, as you can tell. I'm a specialist in which angles to take the pictures in. And then we pay attention to the small details. If you can see, the fireplace is not on the other one, and look at ours.
So and then you're just quiet like that. And then
so here's our philosophy, Aaron. The nicer we make your property look online, the more buyers, the more offers, the more money in your pocket.
Does that make sense to you? Yeah. You do want to net more money, don't you? Sure do.
Do you see the benefit of having this type of do you see how this can help you net more money?
Yep.
And then at that point, it's like you're basically, so when Aaron says it's not in the actual services, it's in the selling of the services. It's how you're pitching the services that allows you to either win or lose.
That's right. So the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. I'm going to be doing a presentation next week in Miami, and it'll be on specifically what to say and how to say it. And the way I'm going to open that conversation is like, yeah, the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. Now I'm going to say that to you again, not because you didn't hear me, but because it's a very fundamental truth like gravity in the sales business, is that the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. But what does that mean? Does that mean that we don't give people good service? No, of course not. And here's the interesting part about the good service. It's expected. So in other words, like when me and Jose go to the grocery store, we don't jump up and down and be like, oh my God, you guys have groceries today. No, we expect them to have groceries. We expect them to have cashiers to check us out, right? We expect them to have apples and oranges and bananas. Like that's our expectation. Just like consumers expect us as agents to be able to read purchase and sales agreements, to look out for their best interest, negotiate on their behalf, be honest, you know, all that stuff, act with integrity. That's the expectation. So it's not that we don't provide that. That's just expected. The fundamental truth is that the money's not in the service. It's in the selling of the service. And then it's like, all right, well, let me demonstrate my point. How many people in this room have a real estate license like me and Jose? Great. Okay, so we can all perform the same service. Yes? Yes. Do we all make the same amount of money? No. Questions why? Well, some people know how to sell the service better than others. So what Jose is doing is this like very key awareness that when he goes into a competitive situation, or you as an agent, when you go into a competitive situation where there's multiple people interviewing for the job, which now more than ever, Jose, I don't know if you saw that stat, we're actually at the lowest level of like pendings than we've been in like 30 years in the first quarter. So 3.8 million, we went from 6.5 million. Last year was 3.89 million transactions. So, you know, the lowest levels that they've been at for like 30 years. So that means you're more likely not going to be competing whenever there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Not only are you competing with other agents, you're competing with HomeTap, you're competing with Open Door, you're competing with investors, right?
Yeah.
So the marketplace is demanding that, yes, much higher skill level and more product knowledge. So one is a much higher skill level where Jose's aware enough, and I've watched it develop over time, right? So for those of you who may listen to what he's just saying, like I remember role playing with him when he was going on 100 listing presentations and only taking 20.
Yeah.
So the guy you see today was not the guy that I initially met. He's turned himself into, you know, a world-class salesperson over time, but he's been a serious student of the game. But like understanding procedurally, not only the structure of the presentation, but then, and following that structure, but then having the awareness to ask questions to find out what's important to them.
Yeah.
And then based on what's important to them, they're telling you how to sell them. Right. And then asking questions to let them to self-discover instead of like trying to like drill your point home. Like, hey, this is, you know, it needs to be this way. And this is why we can get you the most and stuff. Instead, systematically going through and walking them through self-discovery as to why this would actually benefit them. Right. And in doing so, you end up differentiating yourself and winning out more often than not.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. I remember typing it out back in the day, how I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to pitch this, you know? And then it just kept evolving.
Bro, you used to come on to role play calls and be like, specifically, you'd be like, yo, if they say this, what do you say?
Yeah.
And I remember listening to you, you'd be like, you'd be typing or writing, like, okay, cool, go, good, got it. And then you go and you go back into the field and be like, okay, they said this to me. Now what do I say? It's like, okay, we'll say this, right? So,
and it's evolved. Yeah, it's funny because that same thing that I just went over for the staging, when they don't believe in the staging, Matt Green did it for pricing one time, and that's actually how I got that line, because I was like, "This is a good." He's like, what he said was, he was like, look, Jose, I'm in agreement with you. I think that at 250 or 500,000, I think that we're a great value for the marketplace. Unfortunately, the marketplace is not agreeing with you and me. And I was like, damn, you know, it was cool, you know, to see that. Mm-hmm. He's like, because in a lot of, when you're going for price reductions or those stores, it can get very combative.
So you have to like be like perpetually and constantly aligning.
So he aligned with them. He was like, look, like, I agree with you. And I honestly believe at 250 or 500,000, I think that we're one of the better values in the marketplace. At the same time, like, we've had 10 different showings. We've had no offers on the table. The marketplace doesn't seem to be in agreement with us.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add there is be like, yeah, and like, you know, and really through no fault of your own or mine, the marketplace doesn't seem to be agreeing with us, does it? And they're like, well, I mean, I guess not. So, yeah. So, I mean, with that being the case, I just like to review some of those some questions, right? Because my job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So I can get clarity around what you're looking to accomplish and why and what you value most. And then we can go over the options that we have in terms of how to proceed, and whatever you decide, I'm going to support you 100%. It's just much more palatable, much more, they'll be much more receptive. They'll be open, which is really what you need in order to help them to self-discover. Because if it becomes combative, it becomes me versus you. And I think you can also do that, Jose, with presenting. So you can like, remember how like when I came to the company and you had this awareness because I called you and you're like, oh, dude, I'm presenting this wrong.
Yeah.
Because you were just presenting what you were excited about. And I was like, no, don't do that. You know, talk about, and it's really the same thing. It's no different, right? Where I would ask when I hop on calls and I'm like, well, there's really like 3 reasons why somebody like, you know, when I hop on a call like this, particularly with somebody of your caliber, Jose, there's usually only a few reasons why they're open to taking the call. So what I'd like to do is just review those reasons with you in hopes that I can get clarity around what's important to you and why. And that'll end up kind of guiding the conversation moving forward. Fair enough? And they're like, yeah, that's fair. Well, the first reason is, you know, perhaps maybe you're feeling as though you've outgrown your current environment. So you're not getting training or teaching that's in alignment with the world that we live in today. And as such, you're looking to get, you know, better guidance and proximity. The second reason is community, right? You know, you would like to be a part of a community of like-minded individuals that are hard charging and moving forward and learning things and growing, and that are trying to not just sell something, but to build something. And then the third is that you're looking for more opportunities. And opportunities, by that, what I mean is not just commissions, but also equity and this rev share opportunity that EXP provides. So just so I'm clear, which one of those 3 or a combination of those 3 is true for you?
What do people usually say?
They either tell me, it's interesting. So some of them say like a combination of all 3. Some of them might be like, I'm really not interested in the third one. I'm just interested in like 1 and 2, which is fine. But what they're doing is they're telling me, Jose,
How to sell them,
bro. Instead of me rushing in, you know, head fast and headstrong, like a bull in a china shop, trying to like bulldoze them with what I think is important.
Well, even when I go on presentations, listening, and that right there was so big for me because I got really good at selling at listing presentations. But when I started bringing on agents for EXP, I didn't realize, like, I just started telling people what I was excited about. And what you taught me was that, hey, look, if you get to know what they want and they need, and then offer them how you can solve those things for them, then at that point, now you can basically help them get to the next step. And once I did that, I started bringing on more people. But then what I realized was that that's the same thing for any selling situation.
Yes.
So in listing presentations, I sometimes start the presentation with, hey, Aaron, obviously my intention is to be a helping hand for you and help you make this a simpler process for you. What do you think as it relates to the selling process that you would need the most help with? Or what are some of your biggest concerns when it comes to selling? And what's keeping you up at night as it relates to selling?
So good, bro. Because what you're doing is you're just fleshing out all of their perhaps concerns, their worries, their fears, and their problems.
And you're listening to them. Yep. And when I start the presentations like that, instead of me starting saying, hey, look, here's what's going to happen, it's just like, it's a very way of just getting them to open up to you, basically.
Yeah.
And then you're learning, like, and then sometimes when they're like, well, I really don't know, I'll start to probe.
Yeah.
I'll be like, well, let me ask you this. What are you going to do with all the items in the house? Are you going to sell them? Are you going to donate them? Are you going to haul them away? I'll say something like, hey, what are you going to do with, are you planning on having an estate sale? Are you looking to sell the property in as is condition? Are you looking to do any renovations? You know? And then what are your thoughts on staging? And I'm probing different things to find out, like, okay, what services that I offer are better going to help these individuals? And by helping them, it puts me in a better position to be able to earn the business.
Correct. So like specifically, what problems do you have? So that way I can match them with the solutions that I also have.
Yeah, exactly. And then I continually came up with different solutions, which is kind of like the same thing with EXP, you know? It's like continually focusing on your avatar or your client and then coming up with different things that will benefit them, whether it's scripts, whether it's videos, whether it's checklist, whether it's CRM help, having the different solutions for them to be able to help them get to where they
That's
want.
right. They want to learn how to do creative deals. So it's continually and perpetually coming up with solutions to help your avatar accomplish what they want. And for agents specifically, it's to do more deals. For buyers and sellers, or specifically, let's say for sellers, it's to transact quickly and efficiently for the most amount possible with the least amount of headache to them.
Yeah.
That's right. But do you see how, like, it's interesting because this fundamental kind of mental map is much different than I think a lot of the training or sales training that's out there, which is like a lot of it is, particularly for real estate agents, a lot of it is just like trying to lead with authority, and authority is the lowest form of influence, right? Like I know and you don't, or I'm smart and you're dumb, or like, look at me, I've sold all these homes. This is why you should go with me because I'm the best, you know? And I think that you could perhaps produce some outcomes doing that, but I don't think you can produce, you know, outsized outcomes doing that, like 0.01% of 1% outcomes, because at its core, what business really is just solving problems for people. And I think the more that you can kind of rest in, you know, we were on that group role play call and I asked everybody, I'm like, what's the purpose of prospecting? And everybody's answer is like, well, to set appointments. I'm like, well, what if I told you it's not the purpose of prospecting? The purpose of prospecting is to discover problems. And then once I've discovered the problem, that will naturally lead to setting an appointment to, you know, provide a solution. But the purpose is to discover problems, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're really describing here.
And I think too, like, I think the part that's very underestimated in our business is selling, but having product knowledge as well too.
Yeah.
And combining both of those. It was so fun, bro. When I first learned this, Novello, I was about product knowledge. Is I used to say I used to sell cowboy boots, cowboy hats, and my mom taught me how to sell some of these things. And then one time, people would come to me in the cowboy hat industry. There's something called an X on it, and the more X's, the higher the quality. Generally. But what other companies started to do, other hat companies, they just started throwing a bunch of X's. So people would come to me and be like, whoa, why are you offering me a 10X for $300 where I could get a 50X for $200? But the reality is they weren't comparing apples to apples. So what I did to combat that is the X's are only the same if you're comparing the same company. If you're comparing different companies have different standards for their X's. And one company in particular had a very high standard, which is Stetson and Resistol. They didn't just put X's for the sake of putting X's. So what I started teaching people, I was like, look, instead of focusing on the X's, let me teach you how to determine if something is high quality or low quality. And I started going over the thread in the cowboy hat, like the straw hats, like you see how the thread is more intertwined with each other. That means it's higher quality. The further it is, and then I started teaching about like the softness or the felt as well too. And once I started educating them on that, people would buy from me, even though the other companies had more X's, and then they would leave educated in the process, knowing that the X's wasn't the name of the game. It was understanding how to do the quality. But it's the same thing for real estate now, where being able to understand some of the different things that happen, like somewhat of an understanding in taxes, you know, somewhat of an understanding of subject to short sales, these different avenues that people are exploring will help you sell more because you're able to guide people better. And you're able to tell people like, hey, look, like I may not be the right fit for you. That's actually a better fit for you for X, Y, and Z reason. Now I'm having to do it with cash offers. With cash offers, one of the things I'm doing, I'm like, look, not all cash offers are created equal. Like, you may think you have a cash offer for 500,000, but the reality is you don't. This is actually a novation offer. It's not a cash offer, you know? And this is how to tell if that's the case.
Yeah, and by layering product knowledge, you actually are creating more value for the consumer, right? And so it's like there's stages. The first stage is like, mastering like the conversations that you need to master list property in high volume. So setting appointments, pre-qualifying the appointments, the listing presentation, handling objections, closing, getting price reductions, and presenting offers. So those are the conversations you have to master. Now, either simultaneously as you're mastering them, the other specialized knowledge that you need to acquire is product knowledge, right? And then when you can combine those two, then you would be in the category of what Jose would call, you graduate from being like a realtor, which is a made up word, to being a real estate professional. Because now I can not only provide you with guidance on just listing your home, but now I know about 1031 exchanges. I know about if you sell a primary residence, if you put the capital into an annuity, right, you can save money in terms of taxes. I know about doing off-market deals and wholesale deals. I know, because I've taken the time to read the contracts, what home tap. I thought about you, Jose, because it's starting to show up on TikTok. They're running ads. You know what their ads say?
What?
They're like, of course you can get access to your equity without getting a line of credit or without getting a HELOC. And I think to myself, I'm like, bro, I want to do like an ad in response and be like, of course we can bypass usury laws and lend you money at 20%. And make it feel like it's like, like you're not having to pay anything, and we make it all on the back end because we're doing loan sharking, because that's really what it is. But unless you took the time, Jose took the time to actually read that contract, like, what is this? What is actually going on right now? What's the money, right? How is the money working? How is it flowing? Because then you can help consumers make educated decisions with regards to the options that they have at their disposal. And then it's like, look, you shared with me, you were on an appointment and the guy was like, yeah, my neighbor said he'd give me 900. You're like, is he willing to put that on paper? Like, yeah, he said he would. Okay. And do you know, has he met with a lender? Like, have you got finance or anything? He's like, I think so. Okay. Well, here's the deal. If he can put that on paper and he can show you proof of funds and he meets with a lender and he's been like, pre-approved with like underwriting approval, I would do that. Because that seems like a pretty good value. Now, here's my question to you is, if you did decide to do that, would you want to handle that on your own? Right? Meaning like you would engage with them, you deal with the inspections, appraisals, things of that nature, or would you want somebody like me to take care of the paperwork and oversee that process for you to make sure it was smooth and efficient? And then be quiet. You may be like, yeah, I'd prefer you to do it. Okay, well, we could come up with a fee that would be mutually beneficial to all parties in order to do that. So may I make a suggestion? Sure. And now we're going into a closing sequence about that deal, right? So then you get to a place where it's like, I have enough product knowledge where I can offer you multiple different solutions, and any one of them I'm totally fine with, because there's a way to monetize it.
Yeah. The whole point is being able to monetize it. Because here's the thing. Once you do business with somebody, they're more likely to do business with you again, and they're more likely to refer you other friends and family. But you don't earn that right sometimes unless you do business with them, So if I'm able to help them put the paperwork together in that case, it was so funny because that same situation, the guy had questions about like taxes, and he had an interesting one. He was like, look, my wife passed away in 2019. I want to sell my property now. It's 2026. Do I pay any taxes? And to answer that question, he's like, I got to talk to my accountant. And my response to that was like, look, obviously I'm not an accountant, but I've done so many of these where if you tell me what you're looking to accomplish, I could very likely guide you to the right direction. And then if you still have doubts, I can verify it I can send out an email to the accountant for you, and then he could verify it for you. But he gave me the situation. The situation was his wife passed away in 2019. He got married in 2020. And then him and his new wife have lived in this property since 2020, and she's not on title. He's only on title. So in order to answer that question, you have to understand step up in basis. You have to understand, step up in basis, and you have to understand the exemption for the $500,000 exclusion, because technically he's the only one on title, so it's only 250. So what I do sometimes is I know enough about something where on the spot, I'll pull up ChatGPT on the spot, and I'll start asking Chat some questions and combining that knowledge with the knowledge that I basically have. And together we're able to jump to the right conclusion, So, and then I've asked my accountant so many tax questions already that most of them I know already. So the conclusion was that he wasn't going to owe any money on taxes, basically, that he could sell without paying any taxes.
Yeah. But you wouldn't be able to do that without a whole bunch of product knowledge.
Yeah, product knowledge, which is interesting because I throw out the word step up in basis sometimes, and people are like, "What is that?
What is that?" I mean, you could say that to agents and they don't even know what it means.
No, that's what I'm saying. To agents, They have no idea what that is. So to me, it's like mind-boggling how like you're in a selling situation and you can't even answer those simple questions for them,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you expect to get the business? So I think that's what the marketplace is demanding. The marketplace is demanding more skills, more knowledge, more products, access to more products, and more solutions,
Yeah, and here's the wild part, though, because I'm seeing it real time, like, provided that somebody is willing to, because what we're sharing is true independent of how you feel about it or not, right? So independent of if you're like, well, that's not fair and I shouldn't have to do that, and like I just want to stay in my lane and like whatever, it's true independent of how you feel about it. So for those who embrace that new reality, they will be disproportionately rewarded for their efforts, bro. I'm watching it happen with you. I mean, you told me what you've already got going on, closing pending like first quarter, and this is when this pending sales are at their lowest levels.
Yeah.
Right. So
our market's starting to heat up again.
Is it?
Yeah.
What do you think is causing that?
I think it's part of it is rates dropped a little bit, so last year they were at 7, this year they're at below 6, so it's like a percentage point. I think that a lot of people that didn't sell last year still think that the market is bad, so they're like, look, I'm not selling my property for those prices. The ratio between supply and demand feels like it picked up this year. I haven't verified it, but I feel it. Sometimes I don't verify the numbers, but I feel it just in the listings that we have or with the agents. Like Jay's submitting an offer and there's 10 other offers on a property right now,
Well, I also see, because I was kind of what I also see happening too is there's like this very interesting K-shaped economy. So meaning like you're still seeing, if a property is really nice, let's say in like in my marketplace, like if it's really nice at like $1 million, it still gets like a bunch of offers. But these are individuals that are probably in the top 10% in terms of like income earners. So they're like, they got the resources, whatever, like it's not a big deal. But if it's not tip top and like awesome, it sits there.
What I'm seeing too is I'm seeing a difference in single families versus condos and townhomes. The HOAs in our area over the last 10 years have gone up significantly.
Yeah, they did the same thing in Florida. So for that reason, it's affecting demand.
It's affecting demand, basically.
Yeah.
It's affecting insurance. It's affecting that. So I'm seeing like, in some cases, if they're in a price point where close to where you can get a single family residence for, those are the ones that are being affected more.
Yeah, I'm also seeing that rents are coming down. Where like, people previously in like 2020, they could ask whatever they wanted and they would get it. But now like that's not happening. Like they're sitting, because I think they got to a place where it was like, I just asked myself, I'm like, who can afford like $6,000 a month, $7,000 a month for rent?
Yeah.
It's just like a small segment of the population. So, I mean, I think with a high degree of probability, we'll experience more of what we experienced last year. I think you are getting a disproportionate share of what's available because you are embodying and integrating and
Evolving.
executing and evolving on all the stuff that we're talking about. And I think for those agents who do, I mean, what I find amazing and what I love is like, independent of those numbers, the market's, doing what it's doing, as far as 6.5 million to 3.89 million transactions in 2025, we have people in the organization that are having record years. They're making more money, doing more deals, whether they be, retail deals or creative deals, all because they're embodying this strategy. They're implementing and executing on this strategy.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Strategy matters. So appreciate you, bro. Go sell some homes today.
Later. Peace.
Right. Peace.
Súbele, la liga de los grandes llegó. The Elite Builders in the building. Vamos a hacer rato esto. Llegan al lobby brillando la prenda, firmando papeles como si nada les cuesta. Traen tallado, sonrisa que vende. Te enseñan la llave y el futuro se enciende. Citan a las 8, llegan a las 8. Todo calculado, movimiento roto. Una llamada y se mueve la ciudad, porque donde ellos pisan sube el Metrobras. Tú quieres viste y terraza, ellos ya tienen la casa. Solo te dicen relaxa y el trato se da.